For centuries, Earth had been dismissed as a forgotten speck in the vastness of the Orion Arm. It was a world of division and strife, primitive and broken in the eyes of the greater galaxy. To the many advanced species that roamed the stars, Earth was nothing more than an insignificant dot, a place not worth conquering, let alone considering. But that perception would change forever the moment the Virex Armada arrived. With their terrifying fleet of 10,000 ships, the Virex expected an easy victory, a swift and crushing blow to a world they believed to be weak. They thought they would decimate Earth without breaking a sweat, wiping out the humans with their superior technology and overwhelming force. What the Virex didn't know, however, was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for centuries, in silence. Earth had survived countless wars, and over time it had united under a singular banner, the Terran Accord. It was no longer the fractured, chaotic planet it had once been. Beneath the surface, the humans had been quietly building something far more powerful than anyone could have guessed. When the Virex Armada entered Earth's atmosphere, they encountered something they never expected: Earth's planetary defense. Grid, which had been constructed in secret and powered by quantum singularity drives, suddenly came online. A storm of energy erupted from the planet's surface, turning the once pristine sky into a battlefield of flashes and beams. The Virex, ships which had once appeared invincible, were reduced to nothing more than ash and rubble in a matter of minutes. The Battle of Low Orbit lasted just 47 minutes, but in that brief window of time, every single Virex vessel was destroyed. The fleet that had been sent to crush humanity had been completely obliterated by a force far beyond their understanding. As the last remnants of the Virex Armada scattered into the void, Earth broadcast a message across the galaxy. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of centuries of preparation and resolve. "We are not the same species you once ignored. Attack again and be annihilated." The galaxy, once so sure of its superiority, suddenly found itself questioning everything. Earth had gone from a forgotten world to one that commanded the attention of every empire in the galaxy. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. No one knew what to expect next, but one thing was certain: humanity had changed, and those who had once overlooked them would never make that mistake again. The galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Virex Armada, one of the most feared military forces in known space, had been erased in less than an hour by a planet they had once laughed at. Word of the defeat spread quickly, crossing trade routes and diplomatic channels, even reaching the far-off colonies of the Zarelian reaches. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Assembly, where centuries of politics had shaped the balance of power, the mood shifted from arrogance to uncertainty. Species who once ignored humanity began whispering about Earth's sudden rise. Who had the humans become in all these silent years? They were once seen as emotional, divided, and behind in technology. Now, they had built something terrifying in the shadows. But what disturbed the galaxy most was not what Earth had done, but what it chose not to do. No fleet left Earth's orbit, no warning shots at distant worlds, no territorial claims. Earth simply stood still. It watched, listened, and remained quiet. That silence, more than any threat, shook the confidence of even the oldest empires. Secret reports soon surfaced. Earth was building Dyson rings, huge structures around their sun to capture energy. At the same time, Mars was becoming green, with artificial weather, and Titan's surface showed signs of rapid transformation. But one name caused the most concern: Project Horizon. No one knew what it was. Some believed it to be a weapon. Others thought it might be a ship, one that could jump to another galaxy. The rumors grew darker when a scout vessel from the Runari conglomerate disappeared without a trace. Sent to observe Earth's defenses, it vanished near Neptune's orbit. The ship never sent a signal, and no wreckage was found, even after weeks of scanning the area. The Runari kept it quiet at first, afraid of how the galaxy would react, but other scouts went missing too. Different races, different missions, same ending. Earth, it seemed, was not just watching, it was protecting. Something. But what? And why so silently? In the shadows of asteroid fields and the blackness between stars, diplomats and generals argued. Some said Earth was bluffing, still weak behind its technology. Others warned that no bluff lasts this long without being exposed. Fear spread among the great powers, not because Earth demanded anything, but because it demanded nothing. What did humans want? What were they planning? There was talk of opening communication, of sending peaceful envoys to Earth, but no one volunteered. Some remembered the last message Earth sent after the Virex attack, and though it was not repeated, the memory of it echoed in every corner of the Assembly's halls. The silence from Earth became a mystery, and the mystery became a warning. Across the galaxy, ships turned away from the Sol system. Trade routes shifted, and travel advisories were quietly updated. Humanity had changed, and no one was sure what they were anymore. But everyone agreed on one thing. Whatever Earth had become, it was not to be underestimated. And in that growing silence, a quiet fear settled over the stars. As the days passed, the fear surrounding Earth grew among the galaxy's most powerful species. The Galactic Assembly, once a council of unchallenged authority, began to fracture under the weight of humanity's mysterious silence. Species that had once regarded Earth with little more than condescending amusement now spoke in hushed tones, unsure of what to make of this small, formerly insignificant world that had just defeated the mighty Virex armada. The Assembly had always dismissed Earth's capabilities, regarding humanity as little more than a footnote in the grand cosmic ledger. But now, they couldn't ignore the shifting tides of power. The Keltar Dominion, one of the oldest and most influential empires, could no longer sit idly by. Chancellor Grovek, an imposing figure with countless years of experience, was among the first to propose a drastic measure. Better to end the threat now, while we still have numbers, he urged, his voice echoing through the grand halls of the Assembly. His words sparked heated debates, but many shared his concern. What if Earth wasn't bluffing? What if they had something far beyond what anyone could imagine? A coalition was soon formed, an alliance of 100 different races, including some of the galaxy's most feared warriors. Together, they would send a fleet of 50,000 ships toward the Sol system. The mission was clear: neutralize the human threat before it could grow beyond control. This time, they were prepared. No more underestimations. They had every weapon in their arsenal, every advantage they could muster. Their fleet, a sprawling armada of unimaginable scale, sailed toward Earth, ready for battle. But as they neared, they encountered nothing. No grand speeches, no threatening displays, just the cold void of space. Earth was silent, still, and seemingly unbothered. Then, without warning, their communications flickered to life. A single message, brief yet powerful, echoed through every channel in the armada. This is your final warning. It was not a threat laced with fire and fury, but a statement. There was no anger in the message, no desperation, just an undeniable, unsettling certainty. It was as though the human race had transcended fear, standing in the face of such overwhelming force as if it was nothing more than a fleeting shadow. The message rippled across the armada, unsettling even the most battle-hardened commanders. Many of the species within the coalition had their doubts, but now, with Earth's unwavering silence and simple ultimatum, those doubts became a cold, gnawing fear. No one moved, no one spoke. The vast fleet, now just a collective mass of uncertainty, hesitated in the vastness of space, the weight of Earth's calm words heavy in the void. Some commanders pushed forward, arguing that it was too late to turn back, while others felt a growing sense of hesitation. Was Earth truly this powerful? What did they have hidden away that made them so confident? As the fleet waited in orbit, around Neptune, the first whispers of panic began to spread. The silence continued to stretch, and with each passing moment, the uncertainty grew. What would happen next? What would Earth do? The coalition leaders knew they couldn't turn back now, but neither could they predict what would come next. In the dead silence of space, the galaxy held its breath, and humanity, sitting at the heart of it all, remained as calm and unwavering as ever, waiting to see if anyone would dare to cross the line. As the massive armada of 50,000 ships crossed into the Sol system, the leaders of the coalition felt the first stirrings of unease. They had prepared for this moment, hoping to encounter the defensive forces of Earth in full display. But instead, there was nothing. No military ships, no advanced weapons locking onto their fleet, no visible threats. Just an unsettling silence that stretched across the void. They reached the edge of Earth's orbit, and still, not a single shot was fired, not a single ship appeared in their path. It was as though the planet itself had gone completely still, like a living world holding its breath, waiting for something. They couldn't understand. The vast armada began to move forward, with every commander wondering what kind of strategy Earth was hiding. Then, the first sign of something wrong came without warning. The stars, those distant bright lights in the endless sky, began to fade. At first, it was barely noticeable, a slight dimming, as though the light had been swallowed by some vast, invisible force. But soon, the stars were vanishing entirely, one by one. As panic began to ripple through the fleet, a sense of dread descended upon the commanders. They tried to call for answers, but there was nothing. No signals, no communications. Every attempt to contact any ship in the armada failed, slipping into an eerie silence as though the very fabric of space itself had been muted. Then came the unthinkable. Ships, once in full flight, began to vanish before the eyes of the fleet. Entire vessels, massive warships that had once been mighty symbols of power, simply dissolved into nothingness, as though reality itself rejected their existence. The vast armada, now reduced to chaos, began to lose control. What was happening? How could this be? Nothing made sense. Officers scrambled to make sense of the situation, but they couldn't. Nothing was working. Systems were glitching. Coordinates were changing, and worst of all, there was no longer any sign of Earth's defenses. No grand show of weapons, no planet-shattering displays. It was as if Earth's very presence had become a riddle that twisted the very laws of physics. Finally, the armada reached Earth's orbit, and it was then that they saw it. The planet was calm, serene, as if untouched by the chaos surrounding it. Earth itself appeared to be glowing faintly, a single blue marble suspended in the dark. But there was no fleet to meet them, no warships, no signs of the deadly weapons they had expected. It was just Earth, silent, still, and beautiful. Then, without warning, a voice filled every frequency, echoing across the emptiness of space. It was neither loud nor soft, but the weight of it seemed to crush all other sound. You have not come to parley. You have come to destroy. As warned, you will not leave. The message was chilling, not because of its threat, but because it was delivered so calmly, so undeniably certain. And then, as if to prove its point, the ships of the armada began to disappear, one by one. It wasn't an explosion or a burst, a fire. No, it was as if they were simply unmade, slipping into the void, leaving nothing behind but an endless, empty space where they once were. As the final ship vanished, the voice spoke again, but this time, it was the last thing the galaxy would hear from the Earth. The silence returned. Earth had spoken, Earth had warned, and the galaxy understood. They had underestimated humanity, and now the consequences of that misjudgment were clear. Nothing remained. No armada, no force could challenge the power that Earth had harnessed. The silence was not an absence of sound, but the absence of hope for any who dared to challenge it. The galaxy was quiet now, more so than ever before. After the disappearance of the Armada, after Earth's message had been delivered, the vast, expanse of space seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something, anything, that would break the unnerving stillness. The Galactic Assembly, once full of power and pride, was now a council shaken to its core. It was no longer a place of confident leaders issuing demands. Now, it was a room full of trembling figures, wondering if their empires would be next. The Assembly had been forced to acknowledge something they had never considered before. Humanity was not a minor player. In fact, Earth had become a force unlike any other. The galaxy had always thought of Earth as weak, a distant world with no place in the greater cosmos. But that illusion had shattered. The leaders of the Assembly were not fools. They knew their survival depended on finding a way to understand this new power, to ensure their own existence. So, they did what none of them had ever imagined. They sent emissaries, not soldiers, to Earth. A small group of envoys, adorned in the finest diplomatic robes, carrying no weapons but only fragile hopes. They came in peace, trembling as they approached the Terran Council. They didn't know what they would find, only that they had no choice but to face whatever awaited them. Earth's silence had already done its work. The power of restraint was more terrifying than any military might. But what they encountered on Earth was not what they had expected. The planet, vast and beautiful, seemed untouched by the horrors of war. No massive armies lined the streets. No grand displays of force. The Terran Council sat quietly, calmly, as if this moment was just another step in a long journey, unfazed, unbothered by the galaxy's collective panic. Earth didn't demand tribute. There was no request for planets to be handed over, no desire for revenge, no demands for riches or resources. The message Earth sent was simple, yet it echoed across the galaxy like a clap of thunder. The Terran Council stated one rule, and one rule only. Leave us in peace, or witness our resolve. It wasn't a threat, not in the way the galaxy understood threats. It wasn't a declaration of war, nor was it the promise of destruction. It was the truth, spoken in calm and unyielding tones. Earth had already proven its power. It had already shown what it could do. And now, it stood firm in a warning that could not be ignored. From that day forward, Earth was no longer seen as a military empire bent on expansion. Instead, it became something far more powerful, a guardian world. The galaxy feared Earth, not because of the weapons it held, but because of the choice it had made, to use those weapons only when necessary. Humanity had mastered the art of restraint, and that in itself was the true power. No empire, no species would dare test humanity again. Not because of their strength, but because of the unshakable final warning. Attack again and be annihilated. The galaxy had been given a choice, peace or destruction. And for the first time, all the great powers of the galaxy knew the truth. They were not the ones in control. Earth had the power to erase them from existence without lifting a finger, but it was only the relentless, quiet strength of humanity that kept them alive. The decision was theirs. Leave Earth in peace, or risk everything they had built. And in that silence, the galaxy trembled, for it knew that the Terran resolve was as certain as the stars themselves.